The work that I do is really based in vulnerability. And so much of the world is completely allergic to vulnerability, and we see it as this horrible, negative, weak thing. And those of us who know how to be vulnerable, we know that it's like one of the strongest things you can be. It's one of the hardest things to do. And so it's the strongest people, in my opinion, who can experience and embrace feeling vulnerable and being vulnerable. So in light of that, I want to share something a bit personal today, because I believe in modeling that. Sometimes people don't know how to be vulnerable. And I just feel called to do it. So last week I had surgery, and specifically gum surgery. So if you've noticed that I've been talking different in my videos, that's what it is. And it was traumatic. It was really traumatic. And it was really interesting to go through it and to experience where I'm at. It's always, these really challenging things that come up in life, they really show how far we've come with our healing or where we're at if we're on that healing journey. So one thing I struggled with was feeling very alone. I didn't feel that I had the support that I wanted and needed, probably mostly because I feel quite, let's say, disconnected from my family. I did have, my partner and some other people that I love who were very, very helpful, but that was one of the hardest parts, actually, which really emphasizes what I already believe and talk about a lot, which is we don't need to go through a life that doesn't have any problems. We need people who are steady and loving to be there with us. And that's how we can process the things that are really hard. So I had this experience, and, I got through it, and I was like, wow, I just survived that. I was scared of that for the last 20 years. I knew that I had to get it for decades. Oh, thank God that's over. And yet it didn't fully feel like it was fully over. And then the other day I was chewing and eating has been very, very, very challenging. And my tongue sometimes hits the scab because they cut a hole in the roof of my mouth. So my tongue sometimes hits that, and it's extremely painful, but this time it hit in a way that shook me to my core. I started to shake and broke out in a cold sweat and started sobbing. When you get hurt so bad that you have to cry. It was one of those moments. I haven't had that in a while. It was so painful. And once I started crying, I started to just let it happen. And I was realizing as it was happening that, yes, the pain, holy shit, holy fuck, the pain. And I haven't cried for a while, and I was anxious before the surgery, and it was really, really uncomfortable during, and then afterwards I couldn't really move my face, and was just trying to survive through the recovery process. And so this crying was out of pain, but then there was more beneath it, out of fear and all the stuff that I had gone through, the being alone. And I was home alone. Well, my partner was there when I broke down crying, but then he had to go to work. So I continued to cry at home alone. And I started heaving. You know how children, they don't have those filters often. They just, and they have this open, guttural, visceral expression of their emotions that it can be triggering for a lot of adults, and it can bring up our stuff, right? And that kind of stuff started to come up, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting to have access to that right now. And I just let it move through me, and I let myself shake after and make noises and do what I felt I needed to do. So it's been really challenging, and yet at the same time I was in such good hands, and the person who did it was fabulous, and I think I would do it again if needed. So, for anyone who might need it, or if I'm sparking anxiety in anyone, A lot of people have an easier time than I did, I think. Like the statistics are that most people find it fairly straightforward and simple. Some people have a hell time, and I'd say I'm maybe a bit more on that side, but not in the worst of it. So anyways, Vulnerability Wednesday, I suppose. You're allowed to, especially when you're in a safe place or safe people or by yourself, let yourself feel and let yourself express. You can wring your hands, you can wiggle, you can whine, you can make noises or stomp your feet. People feel awkward or silly or stupid doing this because they say, well, I'm an adult, I shouldn't do that. But sorry to say, a lot of us do need to do it. It's deeply healing and very, very helpful. I don't recommend, you don't need to do it in public, but when you're in a safe environment, these kinds of things, allowing yourself to cry, allowing yourself to feel and move and emote, is very, very healing. And it's vulnerable, right? It's very vulnerable. But when we have vulnerability, we have healing. Thank you for listening and witnessing my little story today.